And hello, everyone. A perfect launch to a perfect podcast. I'm sure this will be the one. Anyway, hi, guy. How's everyone doing out there? It is lovely out here in Franklin, Tennessee. Getting a little hot, but I'm ready to get out of here, hit the beach as soon as opportunity arrives. And that's kind of our theme for this podcast: is getting the heck out of our houses, hitting the beach, enjoying the summer. So we'll be talking about some fun summery things, and a little bit of industry news, answering as many of your questions as we possibly can during the podcast, but we might keep this one a little bit short because a lot of stuff going on today, and I do have a big announcement happening at the end of the day, or at the end of the podcast, so stick around for that one, and yeah, we should make it interesting for everyone. All right, let's check the chat, see how everyone's doing, everyone. Let's see. Horo says, "Hey, sweet Donald Duck Beach Party #2 cover from 1955." Yes. I'm glad we could throw that one in there. It's a last minute replacement. There was ironically, there was actually a picture of a crazy, I want to say like Greek guy in a Superman cape launching himself off the beach. But I couldn't get a hold of him to get his photo rights to use in the thumbnail ahead of time. So it was a last minute swap out for the other one I was thinking of. The Muppets, not the Muppets, but Sesame Street almost made it into the thumbnail as well, but I'm glad you guys could get that one. By the way, well spotted on that one. That was a good eye. Greg says, "Hey, mid-cities in South Jersey, nice. And overcast I-80s in Florida. Agent Camp, you're not by Tampa, correct? I keep on looking down there, and I'm thinking, hey, that would be a good getaway. But yeah, I don't know. Is it better in the summer or the winter?" Greg says, "I managed to get a copy of Girls Love Stories #110 this week, so I have just one more April O'Day story to track down." Sure, what the heck? Awesome. I mean, it's cool. I mean, honestly, some of the funnest finds I've had lately have been just weird things I pick up at like bookstores out of the back bins and everything. Just crazy comics that aren't necessarily in the best shape or anything, but they're just. It's nice to see just old weird stuff from the 50s and 60s, especially if you can afford it. Not everything needs to be an Amazing Fantasy 15, because God knows I couldn't afford it. It's either that or the Beach House, one or the other. Yes, and by the way, Agent Camp reminds everyone, smash that like button. And also, if you haven't done so before, please hit the subscribe button on YouTube. It does control whether the algorithm pushes the announcements out to the rest of the group to even let people know that we're broadcasting. But as you guys, the longtime folks know, we try to do this one every Wednesday at 4 o'clock Central. That allows me to yap for about an hour, give or take, and then go off and have a beer and enjoy my day. But anyway, so let's get into it. And Audrey also says hi. Excellent. So, big news. All right, so let's start with the little news of the day. There's a minor rev of ComicBase 1851. If you're one of the folks who has driven around the bend by trying to figure out why the collection statistics never seems to remember your breakdown, it was one of those things where sometime in the last several builds we fixed something, we broke something else, and anyway, that has now been fixed where it no longer randomly, if you were looking by publisher, it no longer randomly switches to whether you've got it by cost or by price or whatever else. So go ahead and download that if that's been driving you crazy. If it has been driving you crazy, don't worry about it. It's not that big a deal, but that has been taken care of in the new one. And as I mentioned, we are forking the development effort off right now. We are starting the preliminary work on the next major version of ComicBase. It'll be called, well, the code name is Burning Man. The final code name remains to be seen, although we have a bit of a pattern going. I imagine you can guess what the top contender is right now. But we'll be getting into that in a bit, and we'll be talking more about that in a future podcast. I want to talk about some other things today. But I also want to answer as many of your questions as I can. I got a couple questions in from readers, and a couple interesting tech things came up today that I thought might be worth sharing with folks. But if you have a ComicBase question, how to do this particular thing, or why does it do a particular thing, or just I'm having trouble with this, that, or the other thing, let us know. Ask in the chat, and we'll hit as many of those as we can. And I'm gonna hit folks off at the pass and say there's also a special forum on the ComicBase forums where you can also propose questions and topics for the live stream, and that's another thing we check. So please feel free to comment there as well later after the show. All right, let's see here. Latest line from Vegas repeats special announcement. Yes. So Gregory Heck says the latest line from Vegas on, about the special announcement: 2-1 that AT&T bought human computing for $1 billion. 10-1, Pete's taking us all along for his Hershey Park vacation. Yeah, could be. We'll find out. All right. So let's get on with it. Industry news for today. Talking about new things, Windows 11 has leaked, and that is going to be the next. I guess they'll be the one guys who no longer name everything Windows 10 or Mac OS 10. I guess Microsoft is finally moving past all that, and they're going to Windows 11 for the next version. That's been confirmed by WindowsCentral.com. So, to the extent that you believe in them, you can take that to the bank. But apparently, the build of it has gotten out into the wild. There's an ISO disk image of Windows 11, which has been seen by any number of journalists at this point. So they've taken it for a spin. First thing I guess you'd notice is, well, let's back this one up a bit. Here is the brand new startup sound. I hope the volume's okay on this one. Ready to be wowed? Here we go. Okay, that was something. I'm just give you all a moment to pause, take that in. Now, in case you're wondering, this was the original Windows 95 startup sound. And fun fact on this one, I'll tell you in a second. Yeah, so that's, I know we're all stoked about that one. I'll get on to other things before I go into the startup sound trivia. But what's Windows 11 going to do for you? Well, honestly, the main story remains to be told. There's going to be a Windows event on June 24th. Where Microsoft hopes to reveal all, but according to folks who got a hold of the new build, first thing you'll notice is the window borders are all curved now. It's more of a flat icon look. It got a bit of a visual, stylistic refresh. It looks a hell of a lot like the now canceled Windows 10X. Everyone is saying. As far as technical foo under the covers, I don't know that they're going to introduce anything super sexy. I hope so, because, you'd like there to be a reason why you gave it the big version bump, other than, we're running out of, releases of 21H2, whatever thing. It's not really getting people excited anymore. I'd like to think there's something really sexy under the covers. I'll say as a developer, I kind of live at the code level most of the time, under the covers, writing things on an operating system. Microsoft actually has been really, really good about rolling useful stuff into the parts of Windows that we touch as programmers. So it's been a good development environment for us. It's gotten more stable all the time. But I like the rest of you. I think we're looking for some user features, like something that makes turning on your computer in the morning a little bit more rewarding than it was before. But anyway, we'll see. June 24th. Keep an eye open for that one. All right, let's close that puppy up. Let's see. Isn't man not PC? Burning Human? Yeah. No, if you guys know, Burning Man, the code name for the next version of ComicBase, comes from the postponed or put back or whatever else Burning Man festival that they hold out in the desert out west where I'm from every year, where you get basically the same crowd who shows up for Maker Faire every year, just brings their more extreme artworks and things like that, and goes out and has crazy times in the desert being wackily creative and nutty and everything for 5 days, and then they haul their sorry, sunburned, dehydrated butts back to civilization over the next week, and then they stay around for a couple weeks and try to clean up the mess they left. They actually are quite amazing in that they keep the whole thing rolling. But Burning Man's off this year, as far as I know, and so we grabbed the code name. We have our own reasons as well. All right, let's see here. David Pilcher says, FYI, if you have a Ollie's Bargain Outlet near you, they have Marvel graphic novels for $3 each. My store is 70% Star Wars, but they have a lot of Deadpool also. Nice! I am going to check that out, because they do actually have 3 different Ollie's Bargain Outlets down in Nashville. I discovered that, ironically, in my trip down to Alabama, which is the thing that gave us the trip into Ollie's is what gave us the ability to see your own inventory in the mobile app, because I was having so much trouble getting my report up over my internet connection. So we made it so that the mobile app could actually now search your live inventory. That was one of the major things I did on my last Florida vacation. So God knows what's going to happen after the next time I head to the beach. But anyway, thank you, David, for the hit on that one. I'm going to check that out. Probably tomorrow, actually. I get an excuse to go into Nashville, so yeah, maybe we'll look around. Sweet. All right, other things that are of note in the universe. Well, let's see here. Let me close up some windows here. Okay, we talked about Windows. Usually I have show notes all ready to rock and roll. I will confess, I'm a little bit of all, as the Brits would say, all 6s and 7s today, because I was busy for most of the morning, both getting our own stuff ready to roll, but also trying to configure my video switcher using this massive new set of macros I picked up off a video producer. And the parts I was able to work are really cool, and there's so much that wasn't working that I'm actually driving the whole thing manually right now, because it just got to be like 40 minutes before showtime. It's like, no way do I go into battle without being able to switch sources and know where my chroma keys are and things like that. So I'm a little frazzled, but I'm going to get through it. All right, but anyway, Ollie's is great, says Ancient Decamp. Yes, it is. There was another announcement, but unfortunately, my show notes are nowhere to be seen, so I'm going to hope that one comes back to me. All right, so before we get into completely rando territory, I wanted to answer a couple of questions that came in today about how to do different things in ComicBase. So let's switch over to the screen, and let me show a couple of tricks off to y'all. Okay, and let's turn on the keyer so we can see both of us at once. So first question came in, which is to say, I've got two different databases. Like maybe you had your reasons from one way or another, and now you're thinking, I would like to put these databases together into one. How do I do this? Now, let's talk for a minute about just the whole concept of different databases. So one of the first things we ever did, we went under File menu, back in ComicBase 7, and we had the ability to create new database. So you could have more than one database, start from scratch, and the idea was that, maybe you've got, your collection, you got your kid, and your kid wants to have his collection in a separate file, imagine like that. Ever since we introduced that feature in ComicBase 7, we've been wondering if it wasn't a massive mistake, because we went up answering so many calls related to, hey, where's my database? I've lost my database. I put my database in a different drive. I'm confused where all my data is. We actually have a thing in our FAQs of, hey, I've lost all my data. What do I do now? Because usually the whole trick there is someone launches ComicBase one day and they look around for all their stuff and it's nowhere to be found because they had been using a database other than the default one. And instead of opening that database one day, they open up a stock database, which is like the default one that comes out of the box, or they open up an old backup or something like that. And so it scares the living daylights out of them, and then what do you do about it? And so we actually one day even wound up introducing a whole new program into our ComicBase world called the ComicBase Database Manager, just to help you keep databases straight on your computer. And I'll show you that one for just a second here. If you go into the File menu, go to File Tools, and then come up under here and say Launch ComicBase Database Manager. If you do this, it'll start a program. It usually takes about 10 minutes, but it'll scan every single drive, every single folder on those drives for everything that looks like a ComicBase database, tell you what's in them, which is important because with databases, the file size, or it doesn't necessarily tell you anything particularly useful. But it'll tell you how many comics are in each one, when you last modified the content in it, and so forth. Then you can find where your database was. You can get rid of any foo you don't need. You can basically say, choose this one, get back on track. This comes up more often than I would like to admit, because, again, people move files around on their computers, things get lost, whatever else, and it does cause a fair amount of confusion. It's got to be in our top 3 tech support calls that we answer here at the office, is different versions of, hey, where's my database? So I do wonder, do we make a mistake even making that optional? But on a second thought, though, is let's say that you had a reason where, I was selling my kids comics, then he went off to college, he said, hey, Dad, you can have my comics now. And now I'm in the reverse position where I had 2 different databases, and what I really want to do is I want to put those 2 databases into one database. Something like that, for instance. Well, it's not too bad. What you do, basically, there are 3 steps. And I'm going to say this up front, this does involve you having ComicBase Pro or better. If you have ComicBase Express, I cannot think of a good way to make all this happen for you, because you're missing a key component, which is which we'll be showing you. But let's say I've got 2 data from databases here. Let me just open up a Scratch one here for a second. Let's just take okay. So here's my real ComicBase database, piece database right here, and let's say I want to export that out and I want to load that into a different one. There's 3 steps to it basically. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the database, the content of the database I want to move out of, and I'm going to export that data into a text file. Then I'm going to open the database I want to move into. I'm going to make sure it's updated, and I'm going to import that content back into there. It looks a little something like this. So let's say that this is the database I want to come out of. I'm going to go into your File menu. I'm going to go to Export. And at that point, it's going to say, well, what fields do you want to export? Now, when this comes up, there's a couple minimum fields you need to have no matter what you're doing. We need to know a title, an item number, and a condition. If you don't put condition, we're going to assume you mean near mint, but do yourself a favor. We need title number, item number, and condition. And honestly, we also need your quantity in stock, because if it's 0, we don't care. Not unless you're trying to preserve records of stuff that you no longer have sold. I can't imagine a scenario where you'd want to import 0 data in. Now, so at a minimum, you need the title and the item number, because otherwise we don't know what issue you're even talking about. We need to know its condition. Otherwise, you know, which of the 5 different copies of Tomb of Dracula 11 are you talking about? You're talking about the near mint one or the very good one or whatever. And we want to know how many you're doing. Those 4 are kind of the bare minimum you need to, you know, export out. Probably you're going to also want to export out your notes. So in case you wrote anything special, like this is, this is a special copy given me my grandfather, signed on the inside copy, whatever you want, you probably want to export that because that's unique to you. And then also, if you used any of the custom fields, any of the custom checkboxes, dates, or fields, if you didn't use those, go ahead and leave them off. If you did use them, make sure you export those in, because the whole goal here is you want to export the data that is not going to be already in the database you're importing it into. And so that's the first part. Last thing you want to do is you want to make sure that at the bottom here you have this checked. It says include field headers. And also probably export only items in stock. Those are the defaults. Leave them the way they are and you should be good to go. And item separator tab is always a good idea. All right, when you say export, it's going to remind you, guys, we spent 30 years of our lives putting this data together. We actually make it easy to export it out for your own needs, so please don't be a jerk and just steal stuff. We actually make it easy to steal stuff. There are a couple security measures scattered throughout the whole thing, so we'll probably know if you stole our stuff and posted it to the web, but what we're really asking you to do is say, look, you put our faith in us to buy data from us for the program. We got to put our faith in you not to just abuse the hell out of it. So anyway, that's kind of the essence of that message right there. After that, it's just going to say, well, all right, where do you want to export it to? And unless you got a strong reason to go someplace else, I would suggest your desktop. By default, it's going to be called export comicbooks.txt, and as that also probably gives away, it also means that if you have books and magazines that you've entered into your old database, you're going to want to export those as well. The reason you have to do them all separately is because they're going to wind up as a text file, and they all have different fields associated with those different collectibles, so you need to handle all 3 of those separately if you've tracked books and magazines in the old database. All right, once you've got your data exported, let me go ahead and minimize this a bit so I can show what that looks like. Come on over here. Just got to rearrange a couple windows here so you can see what I'm doing. And apparently, give me a second. Not what I'm looking for. Okay, well, all right. Gotta hide all my windows just so I can see where the heck did I put that? There it goes. Sorry, too many monitors, guys, and it's confusing the dickens out of me. All right, here we go. All right. So here's the export comicbooks.txt, and first thing you'll probably notice about this is a tiny file. This little file here has got information on 57,000 comic books in my collection. I exported only a tiny amount of the data in it. I see the stuff that's unique to me. But what that looks like if you open it up is something like this. You know, the top line is going to be the title, item number, condition, quantity, in stock, and notes that tells you just what each of those fields is. And it'll say, all right, you know, first title, One World Manga, issue number 1, in near mint. I got a quantity 1 of them, and my note is, it's in black and white. Lather, rinse, and repeat through all 57,000 comics in my collection, and that's all I got. So one thing that's kind of fun about this is if you need a really small file that you could even just email to somebody if you want to sell your collection or something like that, you could do a lot worse than just exporting out a list of exactly the information you want to show him and letting him see it. Right now you're seeing this in a text editor. If I were to open this up, the same thing in like Excel, you would see that it would nicely be tabulated, you know, tabbed to different columns and so forth, and it would, you know, fit into nice columns. But that's not necessary for what we're doing right now. All right, so starting from the top, we took from our old database. We chose export. We chose the minimal fields that we wanted to, you know, export. We saved it to our desktop over here as export comic books. All right, now I'm going to come over to my new database, and let's pick up a new one over here. And of course, I chose an old one that has to recreate some indexes in. Sweet, that was. This demo just went off the rails. All right, well, I'm going to vamp while that's going on, and I'll tell you the story. You know, I saved this. I'm going to pretend I saved this on purpose. So I don't know if any of you guys are music fans. I hope you are, because God knows I babble on about music enough. But when Microsoft was going to launch Windows 95, now Windows 1 was terrible. Windows 2 was absolutely unusable. I was working at Apple at the time, and we were laughing our butts off. We were like, yeah, if this is the best you guys got, we have nothing to worry about. Windows 3 came out, and I believe it started being able to use, you know, higher amounts of memory and things like that. It started to, you know, they stopped having separate programs for managing files versus programs. There used to be a program manager and a file manager. They started being able to put that into one big desktop. I believe Apple's response to that was to sue their living daylights out of them, because they were at that point just basically copying the Mac operating system, which many people would say, although it was, to my knowledge, never approved in court, many people would say that the Mac operating system in turn was certainly inspired from the work of over at Xerox PARC. I can neither confirm any opinion on that one as a loyal former employee of Apple. But at the time when Apple Windows 3.1 came over, we started getting a little worried and started, you know, sending the lawyers out to get them. And that went on for a couple of years. We weren't really too worried. Things were still good. But then Windows 95 dropped, and everyone at Apple got just freaking... They needed new pairs of shorts, because at that point you could tell that this was going to be a serious deal. And for the first time ever, instead of just scoffing under their breath, they would start getting you know, actual like Windows machines brought into the office, booting up this obscene operating system and saying, well, what is that thing? You know, and looking through it, and then everyone's kind of reaction was, well, it's not as good as ours, but uh-oh, because it was close enough that you could tell that a lot of people, instead of paying the big premiums to get Apple gear, were suddenly going to start buying Windows gear. Because up until then, if you want anything resembling ease of use, if you were going to have to buy a Mac. And with Windows 95, that stopped being true in a big way. Microsoft saw that this was going to be a big event for them as well. I mean, they knew what they had on their hands. They hired the Stones, the Rolling Stones, at great expense to come out at the company event and doing it and play, you know, literally, I think they played one song, which was Start Me Up, because they introduced the Start menu. And so they want to make a big deal about that, and also have the rights to just go, Start Me Up, and play that indefinitely through all their early commercials. But then the other thing they did, which was really cool, is they hired Brian Eno, the famous musician, you know, producer, etc. You know him from his work with U2 and the Talking Heads and his own work and so forth. Just absolutely legendarily cool avant-garde electronic producer back in the day. They hired him to do the startup sound, which you heard before, that Windows 95 one with the that one. And they gave him a list of like 87 adjectives that they wanted to encompass, like, you know, futuristic and daring and bright and comforting. It was, you know, and he had to somehow come up with like a 3-second long piece of music which encompassed all those adjectives. And for that, I want to say they paid him something like $200,000. It was a number that was like, really? For 3 seconds? Good gig if you can get it. But that was with the Windows 95 startup sound, and you know, it's been morphed a little bit over the years. But honestly, the Windows 11 one, not sure if it's an improvement. Well, anyway, Your mileage may vary. All right, so that is done. Let's go ahead and import our data into the new thing. All right, so I got Yumiko, Curse of the Merch Girl. One thing I overlooked mentioning to people is before you import the data into your new database, do yourself a solid and update that database. So go onto the internet, say check for updates, and make sure that the new database is as current as it can be. Because if you have new titles that are, if you have information that's being slotted in that it belongs to a title that would have been in the database if it was updated but isn't, it'll come in, I mean, you won't lose anything, but it'll come in a little bit stranger than it would otherwise. So, you know, make sure that you actually say yes to this. I'm not going to do it for reasons of time, but do update the database before you import in. All right, because otherwise it'll come up as an unrecognized title and stuff for anything that was brand new. All right, but then to import in, it's kind of the opposite process. Just go under File, say Import. It's going to say, what do you want to import? Point on your desktop. Very easy to find things on the desktop. That's why we actually, you know, yeah, apparently I might double-click there and relaunch a live music browser. So excuse me a minute. Okay. All right, we should be back in live. All right, so when so you see, let me back that up again. So import. All right, and it's going to say, what do you want to import? Go to desktop, and then choose export the exported comic list that you had before. Now, if you export it with the titles, this is going to save you a lot of time because then it will have automatically matched what the different orders of the records was. So it knows that the first part is the title, the second item in every record is the item number, third is the condition, and so forth. That's why you exported it with the titles, because that way the import knows to auto-match. If you didn't, you got to go ahead and move the items from the available fields, everything that you could import, into the fields that you did import and get them in exactly the right order. It's a process that's more fraught to, you know, messing up than anything else, which is why in ComicBase 2020 we went to town and really made sure that if you just use the default settings, it just does everything automatically for you. So if I were to hit import right now, it would take a frighteningly small amount of time, but too long to make a good demo. And what it would do is it would pull everything that was in my old database, and if it's brand new, it just adds it in like it was a new item. If it was an existing item with the same condition, it's going to add to the same quantity of the same condition. That is a limit to the process, so if you're the kind of guy who likes having every copy you ever bought of something costed separately and tallied up separately, that is not something this does. It's going to average up your average cost of the same number of copies of the same condition of item. But basically it's going to put the two databases together and you're good to go. I hope that was a little clearer than it felt it was, you know, explaining it. Let me see if I can get my windows back up because I accidentally closed them, and let's see how we're doing on general understanding in the chat. All right, going back here. Whoa, a lot of stuff going on. Agent Camp says, I see some ominous boxes behind me. If you're talking about the ones directly behind me on the camera, this is New Comic Day. I'm getting a little behind. Usually the scene behind me is clear, but no, those ones that's comics that I got to file. So they came in from the other office, and I do what you guys do every week. I scan, I bag board, and I throw them down in inventory, and then I fill my Atomic Avid orders, and they all go out the door again. All right. Okay, and a question on a different note. Ron Lashley says, I noticed my barcode reader will not read any of my Michael Turner collections. Am I doing something wrong, or are those UPC not in the program? Let me put the key up here. So, where did I lose my key? All right, that's me. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, my chroma got off. Ugh, this is annoying. Apologize for that, guys. I lost the monitor source in the chat. Give me just a second. I will fix that. This is the stuff I was telling you about that I was scared. Oh, I know what happened. I am hiding the chroma window when I hid all my windows. Let's see if that doesn't work now. Yeah, wouldn't it be great if this was like a well-produced show, if I could actually just hit a couple buttons and everything would work the way it's supposed to? That would be sweet. There we go. All right. All right, so Ralph, so I noticed that the barcode reel will not read any of my Michael Turner collection. Am I doing something wrong, or are those UPC not in the program? Great question. Let's find out. So, you know, if you beep a book in, and it just kind of says, I got nothing. A couple of things could be happening. So, first thing I should probably worth saying is, a lot of people who haven't looked at it in any detail think that barcodes are magic, like that they've got just a ton of information in that code. You know, that, you know, by reading the magical barcode, I can read, you know, the name, address, publishing date, and everything else. It's like, no, the 2D barcodes you see, you know, the QR codes, those actually can have a ton of information in, but they're called 1D barcodes, although they obviously have heights. God knows why. But the one-dimensional barcodes, like you see on the backs of comic books, have very honestly, what you see is what you get. If I'm looking at a copy of this guy right here, let's pull it in so the camera can focus. There we go. All right. So the digits we've got up top are the same digits that the barcode scanner sees. That's it. I mean, which is why at the same time, you also, if you're really stuck on, you know, a damaged barcode, you can always just type the barcode in if that comes up. So yeah, so I've got, you know, between a 9 and 15 or 17 digit number to play with, and that's all I got. How do I get from that to, you know, this is the Michael Turner collection, volume 23, what, you know, number 2, etc. Well, the answer is because you need some morons like us to go and have a reverse index of every barcode that's ever happened, you know, and pile it up with every book that's ever happened and see if something matches. So what we do every time you put in a barcode is we just try to say, all right, looking through the barcode, the alt barcode, or the ISBN, do we see a match for any of that? And if we do, then we take you to the book. If we don't, then we kind of throw up our hands and say, never heard of it. But let's have a look here. Michael Turner. Turner is not spelled with U-R. All right. Let's, which ones you're thinking of? Let's say it's the art editions. Well, okay, so let's start with some easy ones. All right, so if it's Michael Turner Presents Aspen, let me show you some ones that we almost certainly do have. All right, so if you double-click on any of these guys over here, and you bring it over to the right monitor, yeah, that's funny. This one actually, 2003. That's interesting. This must have come through a channel where we actually didn't get the barcodes on those ones, so that's interesting. So the UPC field, alt UPC field, and ISBN is what we're looking for a match on. Let me go to, I don't know if these other ones are going to be remarkably different. Yeah, no, that's actually kind of fun. These ones look like we did not get given barcodes on them, or it's possible, depending on where they came through, they might not have had them. So when you look at, say, the Michael Wim Cluda sketchbook series, here's the UPC over here. And one thing that's fun about the UPCs, I'll see if I can magnify it here, UPCs that start with 978, that actually implies that what follows it is going to be the ISBN, followed by a price. The 50999 gives you the 5 is not significant, but the 0999 gives you that this was meant to be a $9.99 book, at least at retail price. But anyway, it looks like, so where do we get the barcodes from? For Marvel, DC, anything that moves through Diamond Comic Distribution, we'll typically get that as part of our feed from Diamond. You know, depending on when the book was printed and so forth, to even be sold through Diamond, it needed to have had a barcode. If it went through other channels, sometimes they don't have barcodes. Sometimes they have them, but nobody ever scanned it in and gave it to us, and so we just don't know. But you know, I'd say barcode coverage for things like Marvel, DC, if they ever had a barcode, we're really good. We're, you know, it's gonna have it. Weird independent things like that. Especially if the distributor didn't put that out as part of what they feed to publishers, and you kind of have to wait till one kind of lands in your lap in order to scan it in, it's going to be a lot more hit and miss. So that, I'm going to guess, is probably what you saw with it beeping but not finding anything. And then another thing that can go wrong with barcodes, in this case, I'm going to guess that's what did it for you, is that we just didn't have it. And the way to check, like I say, is double-click, see if it's in there. And by the way, if it isn't in there, please do go ahead, put your barcode scanner right over the right field, beep in the barcode, and then send it to us. Click on the line, right click, say submit new or corrected data down here, and then it will send it to our editors, and then the next guy, it gets put out into an update, and then the next guy doesn't have the same problem you did. So that's a good thing to do if that comes up with you. The last case of when people's barcodes don't normally come up is there's a couple of publishers, and it's like two that are using, frankly, improper barcodes for comics. They're not using periodical style numbering for their barcodes, in that they're not. Let me see if I can show it to you guys on the camera. Well, I can do better than that. Let's find a copy of something recent, like Immortal X-Men, Immortal Ortal. I am not typing good today. Mortal Hulk. All right. I'm choosing this because Marvel tends to put their barcodes on the covers, which means I can show you a nice, pretty picture. So, as you guys have probably seen before, the anatomy of a Marvel barcode. If we get down here, is we got the 7, right down here, 7. 59606 means Marvel Comics. 08956, that just means that they decided that Immortal Hulk was going to be, title number 8956, published by Marvel. And then we got a check digit going in here, and then 000, I'm sorry, 00011. That's actually kind of cool. This is issue number 0. 000 is the issue number. 1 is going to be the variation of it, and then the last one is meant to be the printing. That's if anyone follows the standard. Now, there is a standard, you're meant to have it, but some people don't. Anyway, this last group of digits here, these 5 over here, they're in this block, so they're in a slightly smaller type. That's what's called the supplemental for barcodes. You sometimes see it with 2 digits, and when it's 2 digits, it represents a number from 1 to 12, which is the month. The December issue would be a 12, the January issue would be a 1. Which also implies that for the comics that did that back in the day, this is mostly during the 80s, that they would recycle barcodes. So, all the January barcodes, all the January issues of Captain America in the 80s all had the same barcode because they were just recycling. Now, in the 90s, they switched to the more proper periodical format you're seeing here, where it's called a +5 supplemental, where they do exactly as I just mentioned. The first 3 are meant to connote the issue number. The issue digit after that is supposed to be a variation, and the issue, the number after that's meant to be the printing. Nobody's making them do the barcode right. By the way, and you can see up here this is actually Immortal Hulk number 0. But Marvel and DC, they tend to get it right. So when they do, nothing is a problem when you're scanning that stuff in. But anyway, for the people who just brand new to the whole barcode thing, I don't know, they just really didn't get their act together. Sometimes what they'll do, there's a couple kind of companies, I can't think of the name of one right now, but what they'll do is instead of having any kind of supplemental at the end of this thing, they'll just have this first part, the 75960608957, which is, for an EAN 13 code, is considered perfectly valid. The problem is we know it's useless for periodicals, because unless we happen to catch that last group there, we're never going to find your issue. And because barcode scanners, the people who define the format, said that, well, hey, this barcode format is valid with or without the supplemental. We actually, the default for the barcode scanners we sell is to force it to keep looking for that supplemental until it gets it. And if it doesn't, if it sees one of those crazy ones where they just used a wrong barcode on it, we actually just will refuse to read the code. And the reason is because that way it prevents the misreads, and we were getting misreads even amongst experienced entry operators of about 30% of times when, like, if it didn't spend that extra couple milliseconds looking for the barcode, looking for that supplemental at the end, about 30% would only see the front part and it'd be useless as a code. And so all of our barcode scanners are always keyed up to always look for the supplemental and not accept it until it is. In which case, if you do have one of the ones from like the freaky publishers where they only had the main code, not the supplemental, you need to code that in by hand. Or you can use the advanced setup that's on the reverse page of the setup sheet, which is like it'll attempt to auto-discriminate the supplementals, but it takes you chances. For what it's worth, The barcode scanner on my desk is set to always required, because it's more annoying for me getting misreads than it is to, stick the scanner up next to it and realize, oh, wait, this is one of those 100 bad barcodes, and have to type it in by hand. So that's that. Okay. That is the longer than you ever dared ask for answer to that one. Let's move on. And Gregory Hack gave a great hint for the import scenario as well, which is to say, when you're doing importing or when you're using multiple databases, really, really good idea. And you probably saw that I'd done it with my database. So for instance, Pete's database, if you look over here, this guy, I used a green theme on it as soon as it closes the current database. All right, so I use a green theme on it. I see a green database, I know I'm working in my production database. If I go and I open up something else and I see a different color, I know I'm not in my right database. The way you do that is you go into the file menu, go to theme, and I would just, whatever you do, whatever you choose for a theme, and, go nuts, pick something you like, but choose something that is dramatically different than, for your different databases that are in your life. Just so, like I say, you know that, hey, if I open up the orange one, then that means that's my kid's database. And if I open up my green one, that's my database. And I'm never going to do work in the wrong database, because otherwise it's way too easy to, to confuse yourself with. But yeah, that's a great tip, Gregory. Thank you for that. All right. Righty. What else we got here? What is going on? Oh, yes. Come on. You can do it. Let go of the mouse. Sorry. One problem, and guys, if you guys out there, anyone out there has found a way around this, I'll frequently use the built-in magnifier in Windows. I can trigger it from my mouse to zoom in on a particular area of the screen. But one thing I found over time is that it tends to, when I come in and out of magnification and I switch to other programs, it oftentimes locks up the cursor until I invoke the task manager. If any of you guys out there in the chat know of a better magnify routine which isn't going to do that, please write a comment or send me a note. I would love to know, because that's something that since I started doing these podcasts has been a pain in my side. So I would love to have that worked out. All right. Let's see here. Yeah, and Greg mentions exactly what he was saying beforehand. My collection and selling database are separate, but they're different colors, so I automatically know which database I'm working with. Great idea. Let's see here. And let's see here. No clue. Okay, scanning through the chats. Wow. All right. Something about green M&Ms. All right. What? What are you talking about? So Pete's off his game today because the brown M&Ms weren't removed from his candy bowl. That's why he needs a producer. Dude, I knew a producer worse than anybody, but I don't have one. If any of you guys want to come over to my house every Wednesday and sit there and work the switcher for me, I would love that. But the price of getting any kind of peace and quiet in the house is I have to kick the wife and kids and things like that out of the house so that I can do my show in peace. And they're great sports about they go on errands and go to the library. This time they didn't bring the dog, so I was kind of thinking that Dodger, the Wonder Dog, might make an appearance this time out. He was here right before showtime, but yeah, no, I'm on my own doing this one here, so I'm doing the best I can. By the way, and this is apropos of nothing, but I don't know if you guys heard the story. So it was Van Halen famously had a rider in their contract that they had to be provided with 2 bowls of M&Ms in the dressing room with all the brown ones taken out. It had to be only green M&Ms or all the brown ones were taken out. But it was something where it was just going to be a pain in the ass thing for some production assistant at the venue that they were booking into, and you sit there and say, what the hell? And there was all sorts of kid lore at the time, back in the 70s when we're all telling the story to each other. It's like, yeah, you hear it, Eddie Van Halen, it can only have green M&Ms in the dressing room, and it's like, yeah, it must be some kind of aphrodisiac, man. And it was like, yeah, because rock stars and their lifestyles, right? No, it turns out that it was just a brilliant quality check they had, because if Van Halen's going to roll into some civic auditorium with 3 semi-trucks full of lighting and sound gear and PA and everything else going on, the load out, the load in, the site preparation contracts are hundreds of pages long. They're so insanely detailed about like what kind of stage circuit loads and pyro clearances and everything else can be done. All that, it requires such detail that it's impossible for them as they're rolling from city to city to make sure that the guy on ground managing their thing is on the ball in any kind of reasonable way before they set up and, you know, have a stage collapse or overwhelm some kind of, you know, electrical outlet and blow the place up or start a fire. I mean, you can't know this during the time you've got to get your load in done. So someone came with a genius idea, and this really is genius, of basically you throw in on like page 98 of the contract the stupid clause about the M&Ms, and that lets the road manager guy walk straight back to the dressing rooms, and if he sees any brown M&Ms, which if you guys have looked at the M&Ms candies, he sees any brown M&Ms into the whole thing, which are like, you know, 3/4 of the candies there. They have twice as many brown M&Ms as they have any of the other colors because it makes the colors pop. That's, you know, other M&M trivia. God knows why I know that. But anyway, but if he sees anything but, you know, but green M&Ms in the bowl, then he knows these guys didn't read the frickin' contract, and then he can go to war with them before they even start unloading the gear, and they cancel the show if they need to. But it's just a genius quality check. I've done things like this in long documents I've had to read, where at one point I had to write where on page 40 or something of some technical spec I was writing, I said, and if you made it this far and you're reading this one, send an email to me and I will buy you lunch. No one ever spotted it. But anyway, just, yeah, one of those things. Okay, and let's see here. And yes, chocolate. Now we're all on a big chocolate thing. Yeah, and Greg Heck points out that, yeah, Art Vanaheim and Two Morrows don't use the supplemental in their UPCs. I think you're exactly right. Dynamite, I don't know if they're on the good side or the bad side right now. I think Dynamite and Devils do. I think Dynamite's okay now. I think Devil's Due was the one that used to be jerks about. We actually wrote them at the time and said, guys, you know you're doing this wrong. Can we help you? All right. Yeah, what if Pete's dog is a chocolate Labrador? No, I have a Bernese Mountain Dog. Anyway, Show Dodger. I would, but one thing Abel will tell you is he does not come when he's called. He comes when he wants something from you. And so if I had treats up here, then he would come. But anyway, we'll worry about him later. He's someday when I'm old and I have an English manse, I will have a little Labrador or a Basset Hound that sits there, you know, next to my slippers near the roaring fire. Until that day, I have a fuzzy Muppet of a dog that, you know, basically parks his Muppet head on the coldest spot on the tile he can find, right over the radiator grill, and he actually dented it just from the weight of him, and just tries to, you know, keep cool in the 88-degree, you know, southern humidity I've inflicted on him. So, yeah, he wants to be in the Swiss Alps where small children drop sausages out of their gloved fingers all day. That would be, you know, Bernie's Mountain Dog's dream place. All right, moving on. I think we've rambled about this one enough. By the way, if you guys have any other questions, please get them in. Probably only get time for about one more before I gotta move on. Let's see. I think the variant one that people ask me about is way too obscure. You know what? I'm going to park this one for now because I think we hit a lot of long ones right now. And I'm going to get onto the one thing I meant to do last time out that I did not do, and then we'll go for the announcements. All right, so the thing I meant to do last time out... So I want to talk summer reading, because I mean, what else are you going to do at the beach other than read stuff, right? I mean, you know, catch a sun, catch a wave, have a beer. I mean, you know, one problem, of course, is that we all love comics, and we all know that if we bring them to the beach, that will be the last time that comic is in anything like collectible state. You know, no matter how much you try, you will destroy the hell out of that comic book, and I think we all love the comics too much to want to kill them that way. And I say, well, bring a digital copy of the comic. And I don't know, man. It's maybe your Kindle is way more powerful than mine, but I cannot read a Kindle in direct sunlight. So yeah, I bring books, preferably paperback ones. I don't mind losing. And some of the ones I just, a little bit of a comic tie-in on these ones, but I'll pass on some faves I've had lately, and maybe you guys can share your own as well. So, things I'm reading right now. Mike Carey, The Devil You Know. So Mike I had pleasure enough to meet him over at one of the UK Comic Arts conventions. Really, really good writer. He writes a series of books where he actually just kind of stopped writing these for now, but maybe we can convince him to go back to them. But a series of supernatural thrillers featuring an exorcist named Felix Castor, which, if you guys have ever read Mike Carey's work on Hellblazer, you know exactly where he's getting his vibe from. It's just fascinating stuff. I'm just saying, if you're the kind of person who liked Hellblazer, give it a look. He has at least, I think, 5 books in the series. Terrific, well written, very English. So hopefully you've got a little bit of a tolerance for Cockney jargon, but really neat stuff. And I also would recommend in comics his work on Hellblazer as well was just terrific. Anyway. That would be number 1. Number 2, and this one is just fun. And this one is definitely one for the whole family. If your kids are literate book geeks at all, you guys might know a guy named Ryan North. He wrote the Fantastic Squirrel Girl, the Unbeatable Squirrel Girl. Well, he's a character, and he's written a lot of other fun books. He's got another one. He's just out now called What If. But before that, he wrote a couple of Shakespeare-themed choose-your-own-adventure books, which are just freaking great. Romeo and/or Juliet. Where basically you start the book and you like to say, oh, well, did you want to be Romeo or Juliet? And if it's if you want to be Romeo, turn to page 1. You want to be Juliet, turn to page whatever. You take it from there. And it's just and they're hilarious. I mean, they're just I'm trying to see if I can get the let's see here. Yes. So it's they're wacky. They have a dead clever humor. They have Shakespearean jokes like you can't believe. Absolutely worth checking out. I mean, his second one, the follow-up to this one was I think it was Shakespeare Punches a Shark or something. I have to look that one up because it was, yes, you actually have a point in the book where you can actually be Shakespeare, become a famous underwater explorer, and punch a shark. Shakespeare Shark Ryan North. Thank you, Google. You will save my butt yet. Yes, here we are. Yes, it's called Shakespeare Punches a Friggin' Shark. I'm sorry, but this is just too great of a cover. I have to share this. And I guess it started out as a Kickstarter, so well done him. That one's good. It's not quite as good as the Romeo and/or Juliet one, but all well worth checking out. But yeah, if you guys have any other favorite summer reads, please share them in the chat, and I would love to hear about that one. And let's see how we're doing here. And after that, I think I am. I think I'm probably gonna pack it in, and at least a couple minutes early, and go get myself the aforementioned beer. All right, so because Dodger will eat the slippers before they ever get you. Yeah, that's from Kathy. Dodger. It's not that he eats slippers, he just loves them too much, and they wind up bleeding fluffy stuffing all over the place. Agent the Camp says, yes, Dynamite got better. Dynamite does the UPCs right. I think we're right about Devil's Due. You used to have to type them in. And Fabian Von Drisha says, pity you missed my question. Okay, I'm scrolling backward. Oh, here we are. All right. Hey, Steve. Hello. Hi, Steve. I'm Pete. That's why. Hello from Belgium. Will there ever be an updated version of the CB manual, PDF or other format? A lot of changes have been made that made version 11 somewhat outdated. I'm going to guardedly say no. And I have a good reason and a bad reason for this. So the bad reason is because manual writing basically employs a writer half-time. And, it's a lot of expense, and we were getting, last time we did a manual, we actually rigged the file in a way that we could tell if anyone had ever opened it, to even look up anything ever, and we were getting open rates of like 2%. So like if you ever open the manual, like 1 out of 50 people were doing it, and you're saying, wow, we paid how much money to get that written? Damn. And then you have to update the manual constantly because every little thing you change, everything else, it's problems. So that's the bad reason to not do a manual. The better reason to not do a manual, and you'll notice we're not alone with this. We're a small company, but even like the big companies like Adobe and things like that, they have whole instructional training departments. Full of dozens of writers who work on there's probably several writers who just work on Photoshop. But the other reason with our tiny little company doesn't do that is because we've really made the decision to take our instructional content and chunk it down much more. So instead of seeing a manual, like if you read this tome, here's how to use the book. What we're trying to do is we're trying to bust it into little bite-sized chunks of here's how you'd export data from one database to another, or here's how you export data at all. Here's how you import in, and then you put those two articles together. Here's how you would merge, two databases together, and then ideally write the article about here's how to export data, and then here's how to import data, and then write a third article which is here's how you merge two databases together. And you put those as little bits of content chunk either in video format or in written format. Put that up on the website, keep linking to them as people demand them, and if people start asking questions that we don't know the answer to, go ahead and start writing those articles. And that's what the approach we started taking with ComicBase 2020 is, as people ask us questions that we can't answer very simply, or that we find, it seems like this one's coming up a bit, then we keep on trying to write the articles and put them on the website and link to them there. So that's kind of where our head's at on manuals. I don't see us doing a tome anymore for the manual. I feel like that style of instruction has not been very successful for us or anyone else. Even though, if you even go back, and I'm ridiculously proud of the ComicBase 1.0 manual that looked like a graphic novel in just its format. We used to package in with a disc. I thought, wow, that thing went through about 7 rounds of edits and whatever else, and we really got that thing sharp. And it just winds up being just an artifact. So yeah, I don't see us inclined to go down that road anytime soon. But I do want to get your feedback, that said, about things that in particular you'd like to see longer, maybe written or video presentations of what you'd like to see in referenceable material. We can go back and read how to do X, Y, Z with ComicBase. Send those to us, support@comicbase.com. Say in particular, hey, I have questions about how to do blah blah and blah, and then we can sit there and prioritize it and see, all right, we've gotten a few questions on that one. Yeah, let's get that written, and because we can crank a tutorial in part of it, a few hours, right? Cranking a manual is months. So yeah, that's probably how we're going to take that one. All right. Let's see here. All right, I think that does it. Oh, Fabian says try again this week. Thanks, Agent. Pete, get Fabian's question. Yeah, sorry, man. You called me Steve. What do you want? Let's see here. All right, and I think everyone else got it. All right. Thank you very much, guys. We guess because Pete loves those tangents. Yeah, sorry, guys. Too true. Apologize, guys. Anyway, guys, have a great week out there. A lot of us are fathers. Have a terrific Father's Day. Let your kids spoil you rotten. Let them, let you sleep in. I don't know if anyone ever gets ties anymore, but if they do, wear it proudly. But guys, have a terrific one, and we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.